So this is a swarm I caught in Bayside, and it was from the colony that's in the wall that we're about to cut out. Um, the great thing about pulling bees out of a swarm is it's that many less bees that you have to vacuum. But then when we got there, the thermal camera showed two hot spots instead of one. So I figured that we had two colonies that we're dealing with. So my equipment can only handle one colony at a time. So I figured we'd have to get one colony one day, unload the equipment, come back the next day and get the second one. But in the end, they are the same colony. So there's a little teeny walkway in between them. So I guess the queen would go back and forth, because I took the second colony and I shook a cluster of bees. See, here's a hatched queen cell right there. And then this is a chewed queen cell, and a chewed queen cell. So there's a virgin queen in there somewhere, but we never found her. So when I dumped a bunch of bees on top of the first colony, or the first group of bees I took home, they immediately started fanning instead of fighting. So I knew that they were the same colony. So the day before we had, pulled the wood and got that first section out on the bottom left. And then we came back the second day in between all this rain that we're having. And then the vacuum is set up with a little regulator so I don't have too much pressure, too much vacuum, too much suction. If it's too high, you'll kill the bees. So there's this perfect spot where if the bee has, 6 legs attached to the comb, you shouldn't be able to vacuum it. But as soon as it starts to walk, it should go down the tube. So, I'm pulling these pieces off, kind of exposing what's back there. So this colony has been in a shed for, I hear, like 40 years. So obviously it's not this colony. It's, if the queen doesn't mate, and then it's going to die, and then another swarm is going to move right in. So, there's been a lot of different colonies in this wall. So 40 years is a long time. So there's a lot of really old black comb. A lot of it we threw out, the stuff that hadn't been used in a long time. And then they chew comb, drop it to the bottom, and the rats have their way with it. So I have a little jig, and I measure out how big the comb is so we can rubber band it into a frame. So Hank is helping me. So I cut the pieces off. If it's garbage, I throw it in the trash bin. I'll vacuum all the bees off. And then if it has brood on it or capped honey or something usable, I'll cut it off, vacuum all the bees off, and then I'll hand it to Hank, and he goes over and rubber bands it into the frames. But it's really important that it's put in the same orientation that it's out of the wall. So especially the honey, because it's, honey cells are facing upward, so the nectar doesn't drip out. So you got to put it in the right orientation. If you don't, I've had bees out of cutouts ignore comb that wasn't put in correctly for whatever reason. So it's just the same process. You just vacuum bees. The whole time I'm looking for this virgin queen. But virgin queens are really hard to spot. And I think I got her the day before. Just how the bees acted. When I introduced the second group of bees to the first one, they were fanning like it just smelled right to them. So vacuuming. Look at that dark propolis. That wall is super old. This shed is like, it's termite infested. It's like termites holding hands, holding this thing up. The studs that went all the way down to the ground were completely rotten. So when we were pulling those boards off, the entire wall was shaking. So their plan is to, get the bees out of there safely, rehome them, and then they're going to take the shed down. But in the meantime, this smell, since there's been bees there for so many years, the smell is going to bring in another swarm. If they leave it open, then a swarm is not going to establish unless they put up, if they patch that all up and they forget to close a hole, another swarm's going to move in, and then we're going to be right back here doing a removal. So I got Honey Bandit, and I sprayed it up at the top where I didn't want the bees to migrate past that point and go into the cavity further. When I was also done, I went and got Honey Bandit and sprayed the whole thing. I got a scope, and I'm looking into the next cavity over to see if there's anything else. And there was definitely an old colony. You could see some old wax and propolis, but 40 years, of this shed having bees, I'm sure there was another colony in there at some point. So we scrape off all the gunk, we clean it up best we can. And then I went back with Honey Bandit and I sprayed over the whole thing to minimize the chances of another colony coming. And then I go and vacuum up the stragglers. There's always going to be a few bees that don't make it. But, I turn off the vacuum and then we clean up a bit and I come back and vacuum them up. So we probably missed, maybe 100 or something, which is, not even the amount in a varroa mite test. So that was it. I didn't get any footage of, hauling these bees or taking them to the apiary. But both of the cutouts, it's one colony and we combined them. And so hopefully there's a virgin queen in there and she's going to mate. And if not, then I will do a queen introduction.